Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome back to another live stream on the channel. Just like last week, same time, same place, and what we're going to be doing today is essentially the same thing. We're going to be looking at the current news going on in Formula 1. Of course, in the last week or so, we've had more car reveals, and also, not just car reveals, but interesting news coming with those certain teams who, whilst revealing their cars, have announced targets for the season. Also a controversy when it comes to Haas F1, which we'll get into later on. There's always controversy with that team. But yeah, basically, we're just been getting into the news of the last week or so. And the only news is, again, the car reveals of Mercedes, Aston Martin, Alpine F1, Haas F1, and the Williams team as well. And that's what we're going to be getting into today. Hopefully you guys are well on the first spring weekend of 2021 in a year that hopefully should improve as it goes on. And yeah, hopefully you guys are doing well, and hopefully you're very excited for the Formula 1 season coming up very quickly. Pre-season testing in about a week from now. Can't wait for it. Sorry. Can't wait for that. It's actually less than a week from now because it starts next Friday. So it's in about, 5 days from now. So can't wait for that. And then, yeah, the first Grand Prix, 3 weeks from about now. I think the Grand Prix in Bahrain takes place around 3-4 p.m. So, yeah, 3 weeks exactly until the first Grand Prix. It really is flying by, and I cannot wait for the first Grand Prix and for testing as well. But, yeah, hopefully you guys are doing well at the moment. But, yeah, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. So, let's go team by team of the teams that revealed their cars during the course of the last few days or so. So, let's first get into the Silver Arrows Mercedes. Now, of course, because of the whole Black Lives Matter and equality drive by Mercedes and Formula 1 in the last year or so, which was the reason why they went with a black livery for 2020. They are going to, of course, keep that livery for 2021. And actually, even though I liked the silver livery from, say, 2019 or even 2018, I think without even realizing it, they really caught on to just a great livery Mercedes with this black livery. It really does look good. It looked great last year. I'm sure it will look good this year. And the only issue I'd say I have with the livery is, and if I go back a picture, is you see where the driver number is, where it says 77 on this one. That new silver bit there, I don't really like that. I liked it when it was, I think it was black last year. And obviously they had the numbers stand out better, on the black. So I thought, honestly, that was better last year. But, I mean, the car, it looks great. It really does look great. And we know what's going to happen this season. This team is going to be just incredible again. I don't see anyone realistically challenging them. I mean, there'll be the odd race here or there where, Max Verstappen does Max Verstappen things. Or Mercedes make a real cock-up of it that allows, a midfield team to win a Grand Prix. That'll happen. But out of the... And how many races are there? 23 or 22 races this year? They're going to win probably 17 or 18 of them in this new machine. Absolute beast of a car, which I'm sure it's going to be. The 2021 Mercedes car. So yeah, there you go. There it is. Let me just get on to a couple more pictures of it, though. I think I've already showed that one. Let me show this one. Is that the same one? Hold on. Let me just try and get up a couple different angles. There you go. That's a more of a rear-facing view of... And this is, you can see with the 44, of course. That is Lewis Hamilton's car. And yeah, it really does with the new livery they've gone in the last year or so, the black. It does look really, really nice. And especially last year, whenever we had a Grand Prix where it was sunny, it really did stand out and look great, I thought, compared to a lot of liveries out there on the grid. And then here's a side-on view as well. The reason I'm not going to be really talking about, aerodynamic parts and stuff like that is because this is just a render of the car. It's not the actual car, and also, if it was, they're not going to reveal, very important key aerodynamic parts when they don't have to. They'll do that when testing comes about, which is why I'm not really going to talk about, certain aerodynamic pieces and, differences in the cars until we get to testing, because the car reveals are basically livery reveals. They've got nothing to do really with revealing certain parts of the car. Next year will be interesting, of course, because, massive new set of rules and the cars will look a lot different. But, again, car reveals these days are just a promotional event for the livery. So that's really all there is to it. But yeah, it does look, again, very good, and I'm sure it will win the championship yet again. But before we go on to the next team, I have got to warn you guys that if you are prone to reactions hormonally, if you know what I mean, then you might want to look away, because what I'm about to show you just might get your juices, if you know what I mean, flowing. Definitely got my juices flowing when I saw it. And it is the new 2021 Aston Martin F1 car. When I saw this, I cannot describe to you how just, I wouldn't say elated I felt, but how just happy I was that this is what they went for. Because when I thought of what Aston Martin's livery was going to be, I thought they were going to go for green mostly, but I thought they'd also go for, say, a certain part of the car would be a different colour. They wouldn't have the balls to go full green. I mean, this car's not full green. There are some parts that are not, but with the livery they've gone for, which is what I'm really hoping for, I'm so happy that they've gone for that livery, and I'm so happy about this livery. As I've said, it's so great. It really is so great. And if I show a couple pictures of the car actually out on track, I mean, that in the hands, as you can see there, of Sebastian Vettel, it really does look good. This, for me, is the best looking car so far, without a doubt. Maybe you guys don't want to know this. Not literally, of course. I'm insinuating something, but I basically did cream my pants over this. It is such a good looking car, especially with the, the 5 on there, the logos. It looks so beautiful. It is one of, for me, one of the best looking cars we've had in the last few years. It's so good looking, and I cannot wait to see this car on track. I really cannot wait to see this car on track. Let me show a couple more pictures of the car for you guys. Show this one. This is a good one of, again, Sebastian Vettel. Front end of the car looks great. And then here's another one, I think, of Lance Stroll. Nope, that's Vettel. I think this one's... Nope, that's not Lance Stroll. There you go, that's Lance Stroll. And in the wet, you can just see the colour. It just looks so great. It reminds me a lot of the Jaguar from the early 2000s. And that livery I thought was pretty great. And just, even though they weren't really ever that good of a team, Jaguar, their liveries did look good. And this does look good on the Aston Martin. I think the big difference is, though, Aston Martin are certainly a lot better of a team than Jaguar ever were. Jaguar back in the day were an absolute mess, despite the great looks that their livery had. This just looks beautiful. It really, really does. There was, though, a couple surprising things that came out of the car reveal itself, the event, in terms of what Aston Martin and one of the drivers said, as in their targets going forward. So I think first off we'll get to Lance Stroll, because he is the man on screen. Lance Stroll is targeting a top 5 finish in the Drivers' World Championship in 2021. That is optimistic, to say the least, considering the top 3, it's going to be probably Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen again. leaving 2 spots for the other, so many drivers. And even if Aston Martin are good, I don't see Lance Stroll beating Sebastian Vettel, even though if he was to, it would really prove just how good Lance Stroll is at the moment and how much he's moved on since he started in Formula 1 and all that. But top 5 in the Drivers' Championship, that is a very, 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 very optimistic aim, and I'd love to know what he smokes at night to come up with such a prediction, or maybe not a prediction, but an aim. But the only way he can finish in the top 5 in the championship is really 2 things. One, if he really does improve massively compared to last year, and last year I thought he was pretty good. And even though if he really takes a big step forward again in qualifying, again, there is a possibility that could happen. But I think the biggest reason, if it is going to happen, if it will happen, the biggest reason for it happening, that's what I was trying to say, is the car obviously being good. If the car's not quite, in the top 3 or 4 on the grid, then I don't really see how Lance Stroll is going to be able to pull that off, because, it's just not. He's good driver, Lance Stroll, but he's not that good, if you know what I mean. He's not going to overexceed the car's performance by that much. I think Sebastian Vettel possibly could, but I don't think Lance Stroll could. So the car does need to be very good. Probably needs to be top 3 on the grid on pace for him to be able to even think of that seriously. But yeah, we'll see in 2021. I mean, if Aston Martin are very good and Lance Stroll improves a lot, I don't see why it can't happen. I mean, he's proven me wrong in the last couple of years as to his talent and how good he actually is. I mean, I knew he was talented, but I didn't know he was as talented and as good as he has proven to be in the last year or so. Another interesting thing to come out the car reveal, though, was the team Aston Martin. I don't know who it was exactly. It was one of the bosses. It wasn't anyone who is, say, part of the trackside operation. But they came out and said that Aston Martin are probably 3 or 4 years away from being at a level to compete for world championships. Very surprised they came out and said this, because I think that's not even a bit, way too optimistic. Because even though, Racing Point in the past with not that much money have done well, and now they have a lot more money, you'd expect them to use that well and be a very good outfit on the grid and to possibly now be a big F1 team. It does, at the moment, especially because of how great Mercedes are, it does take quite a lot to even compete for a championship in this current era of Formula 1 compared to, say, 2008 or 2009. Back in those days, there wasn't a team that was so incredibly dominant that you had to basically be perfect, to compete for a championship. Again, in 2008, 2009, there wasn't really a dominant team. The top 2 or even 3 teams were kind of equal-ish. Even at times in 2010, even though Red Bull had clearly the best car, the top, 3 teams were, on race day were kind of about the same in terms of results. And there was, again, no real dominant team. Same even with 2012 to an even more, bigger extent. But yeah, in the current era of Formula 1, you need so much talent, money, and just, you need basically the perfect F1 team at this current point if you're going to compete with Mercedes. Because look at Mercedes. I mean, do they have a weakness? No. Their engine now is probably the best. They've got the best car aerodynamically, chassis-wise. They've got the best driver. They've got the best team boss. They've got probably one of, if not, maybe not the best designer on the grid. That I'd still go with Adrian Newey because of, the cars he's designed over the years. But one of the best designers on the grid in James Allison. And they've got quite a big and talented design team. Again, you need so much to even compete for a championship in this current day, that I just don't see why they would come out and, you know, put pressure on themselves, because that's what it has done. It's put pressure on themselves, because let's say Aston Martin this season finished in the top 3 in the constructors, and then in 2022 they really do get the regulations right, and, you know, let's say then they finish second or maybe even third again in the constructors, but they get, you know, 2 or 3 race wins along the way. Then, you know, if that does happen, then, you know, a couple years after, people are going to be expecting Aston Martin to be, you know, possibly competing or winning a world championship, when I don't honestly think that is realistic, because you've got to remember that despite Racing Point, formerly Force India as well, being, you know, great at getting the best out of what they have as an entire team, they don't really have that many people in that team who really have, you know, an absolutely incredible, amazing amounts of talent. I mean, Sebastian Vettel, you have him as a driver who, you know, is really going to move the team on with his, you know, amazing talent as a driver and just everything he does. But they don't have enough people on that team who have absolutely incredible amounts of talent, you know, compared to, say, Mercedes, that can, you know, go and make a car that's absolutely amazing to win a championship, or just as a team be strong enough to do that. And yeah, I just don't think they should put that pressure on themselves, because, yeah, even if they do have a couple good seasons, say this season and next season, if you put that pressure on yourselves, then you're only going to be disappointed with finishing, say, second and third in the constructors, when, to be honest, considering, again, this team and what they've been through, they should be pretty happy with that, because, you know, you still have Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, you know, very big teams who should be up there in the top 3 or 4 in the constructors basically every season. So yeah, I just think very unnecessary that, you know, that pressure being put on them. But, you know, if they do become title challengers possibly in the future, that'd be great for the sport. It really would. Especially this man on screen was able to compete yet again for a championship and get title number 5. I don't think he will, to be honest, because I don't think Sebastian is as good as he was. He's still, you know, a very good driver, even for Formula 1 standards, he is very good. But I don't think he is the driver he was, and I still don't see anyone other than Lewis Hamilton winning a championship for the next, you know, 2 or 3 years, and if it's not Lewis Hamilton, it'll probably be Max Verstappen. So yeah. Anyway, before we get on to Alpine F1, let me come to you guys in the chat and see what you guys have to say as to Aston Martin, how their car looks, what they've had to say about targets coming, you know, for the next few years or this year, and also what you think of the new Mercedes F1 car as well. Let me take a quick look and read out some comments. Hello, by the way, to everyone in the chat. Great to see you here as always. Let me look. Blade says Stroll is underrated, I think. I think now he is. Yeah, I think now I'd say I wouldn't say he's massively underrated. Well, I mean, I'm talking in terms of him being overrated. I'm talking slightly overrated, not overrated, underrated. I'd say he's slightly underrated. I wouldn't say he's, you know, massively underrated, like, say, a Sergio Perez or someone like that. Let me find a couple other comments here if I can. Cybertrader says the Aston Martin car is better than its drivers. Well, we'll see in testing. Blade also says Aston Martin versus McLaren is going to be very exciting. I don't think anyone else also in the midfield will be able to be on their level. Well, we'll have to say, I mean, you've got Ferrari who, I mean, they're not a midfield team in terms of resource and money and power, but they were, and I think they still have to be the expectation that they are a midfield team. And then obviously have Alpine with Alonso, so I mean, that battle will be good, Aston Martin versus McLaren, but I don't think it will just be that. I think you'll have Ferrari in there, Alonso in there, hopefully AlphaTauri as well. And if AlphaTauri start the season off a bit stronger, kind of like they finished in 2020, I think AlphaTauri could surprise people in 2021. Let me find a couple more comments here. Seki says heat-sensitive problems are solved according to Merck. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. To be honest, Mercedes are probably just going to have another, perfect car again. If you look at last year, did their car really have a weakness? I mean, if you look at the races they didn't win, the 70th anniversary Grand Prix was because Pirelli selected a certain type of tyre that wasn't really suitable for the track and the weather conditions. Also, it being hot allowed those tyres and the way they were for that weekend to play an even bigger factor. So, and I think the tyre pressure it was a bit higher that weekend, I think, than it normally is. And that's really the reason why Mercedes didn't win that Grand Prix. And then you have the Italian Grand Prix where they lost because Lewis Hamilton entered the pits when he wasn't supposed to. And then you add, what was the next Grand Prix that they didn't win? Was it the Sakir Grand Prix? I mean, that was just, them making a massive mistake on, the tyres when it came to the pit stop. And then Abu Dhabi, I mean, people say, Max Verstappen was great, Red Bull were great, Red Bull were actually faster than Mercedes. Completely forgetting that Mercedes had the power units turned down because they had reliability problems, I think all that weekend in Abu Dhabi. So if you actually look at last year, they didn't lose a Grand Prix really in normal conditions. There had to be some sort of double six thrown for them to not win. I'd say that probably the last time they didn't win a Grand Prix on pure pace was probably the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix, where Max got pole and won the race and was just great. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the last Grand Prix where they didn't win a Grand Prix on pure pace. Right, let's read a couple more comments and we'll get to the rest of the teams. Blue Flag Alpha says, wish the green was darker. I mean, it's pretty dark looking. It's not too light. I think, honestly, the shade of green they've gone for, it really does look good. I cannot wait to see what it looks like in Bahrain, whether it be, in the sun or at night, because I think it will really showcase how great this livery is. Laurie says, AlphaTauri just need to be a bit more consistent with their results and they can challenge for 5th in the Constructors. Yeah, if they were a bit more consistent, and as I said a moment ago, if they start the season off a bit stronger than they did in 2020, then I don't see why they can't compete for, say, 5th or 6th. I don't think they will finish 5th or 6th, because I just don't think ultimately they have an entire unit that is strong enough compared to Alpine or Ferrari or Aston Martin or whoever is in that, 4th, 5th, 6th part of the Constructors. But I think they can definitely have a stronger season. And again, if they finish the season, if they start the season rather, how they finished 2020, and then just improve as the season goes on, they're going to be a dark horse, certainly, going into the rest of 2021. Cyber Trader says this should be one of the most exciting seasons. New cars and driver shuffles. I think honestly this season is going to be basically the same as last season. Definitely in the top two, I think Mercedes and Red Bull will definitely be the same up there. But I think in the midfield, I think what we'll have the same level of excitement and talking points when it comes from when it comes to, the midfield teams and their battles and that in certain Grand Prix. The only difference, I think, will be the order they finish in. I don't think the order will be the same. I think there'll be a couple teams, finishing in different positions. And by the way, I do have a podcast coming out, hopefully, next week, say on Wednesday, maybe Thursday at the latest, where me and Nib get into and talk about predictions for 2021, early 2021 predictions, of course, before we've seen anything from pre-season testing. So yeah, make sure to check that out when it comes out. We will be doing, though, by the way, our real final predictions for 2021 after testing. Once, of course, we've seen testing and, seen what teams have problems aerodynamically, reliability problems, all of that. So yeah, we'll see in testing what happens there. Right, let me find one more comment, then we'll get on to the next couple teams. Laurie says, the only way I see Haas not finishing last would be if the Ferrari power unit improves. Well, talking of Haas, I think we'll get into them in a moment. But let's first get to Alpine F1 and their car reveal for 2021. Now, let me get up if I can. There you go. That's the Alpine F1 car. I don't think it's as good looking as the Aston Martin, but I actually think this is probably the second best looking car on the grid. I really do like the blue. And again, the shade of blue they've gone for. It really does look nice. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a 2000 or 2001 Prost F1 car, which I honestly think back then was a good looking F1 car. I think it looks like that. And again, it is definitely good looking, as you can see on this side-on picture. Again, I wouldn't say it's the best looking car. I think the Aston Martin would have to be that. But, I mean, it looks pretty good. It really does. I cannot wait to see, again, this in Bahrain, in the sunshine, and also in, with the lights out, to see what this looks like with the colours and, because I think it'll be another car that you'll see and think, that is a really, really good looking livery when we get to see it actually on track. But when it comes to Alpine, a couple interesting things. Fernando Alonso, of course, did not attend the car reveal because he's still recovering from surgery on his fractured jaw that he suffered, when he had a cycling accident in Switzerland after colliding with a car. He will, though, be fit for testing. That is, or has been confirmed. He will be fit for testing. I don't think he'll do the first day of testing. I think they'll try and give him an extra day of recovery, just to be sure. So he'll probably do the Saturday of testing, the middle day. Yeah, I think, he should be fine, Alonso, for this season. I don't think this accident, I don't think it's really going to play a massive part in his performance. Very interested to see as well in 2021, when it comes to racecraft and his speed, how it compares to when he was, in Formula 1 in 2017 and 2018, when it was still great, but of course he was in a very slow car and couldn't really show how good, his craft was, or he couldn't really be at the part of the grid where he should be, which is in the top 5 at the very least, if not in the top 3, because he is still, I think, a very, very good, if not great driver at times. I will say, though, there was one thing that came out of, the whole car reveal event that I had to laugh at, because it's just so hilariously not just wrong, but it's just a clear case of lying from this team. So, at the car reveal, can't remember exactly who said it, but one of the bosses said that between Alonso and Ocon, there is no clear number 1 driver. Who the fuck do they think they're kidding? Of course there is a number 1 driver. His name is Fernando Alonso. If you think he's joined this team to be an equal to a midfield driver, no disrespect to Esteban Ocon, but he is a midfield driver. He's never really going to be fighting for race wins or anything like that in his career. If you think he's come back, to be an equal driver to Esteban Ocon and that he doesn't have probably stuff in his contract written in that he is, the number one, then you're an idiot. And again, who the fuck do they think they're kidding? Of course Alonso's the number one driver. If you have Alonso in your team, you can't not have him as the number one driver, because if you have him as an equal, it will implode. Do I need to mention 2007 again? I mean, such a stupid comment. I mean, do they honestly think we're going to believe that? Oh yes, Esteban Ocon is equal to Fernando Alonso. Yeah, sure he fucking is. He's not, is the clear answer. He is not equal. No disrespect to Ocon, but he's not as good as Fernando Alonso. And even if Ocon is closer to Alonso than I think he'll be, Alonso's still going to be the number one and will still parade around that team like he is God, because that's what he has done in previous teams. And, in certain teams, that has worked for him. Even though he didn't win a championship at Ferrari, I mean, he still did, come very close 2 times and won quite a few Grand Prix. Won a couple titles for Renault, being, the clear number one driver. But again, who do they think they're kidding? Who do they think they're kidding? I'd love to know who out there actually thinks or believes that comment of, yeah, they're equal. Fuck, they're equal. There is only one driver at that team, trust me, and that's Fernando Alonso. Why do you think Cyril Abiteboul's not there? Has been replaced by, was it Davide Brivio, I think his name is. If I pronounce that wrong, then sorry, but I've not really heard of the guy before. Why do you think that's happened? Because Alonso doesn't want to be, yet again, even though I think Alonso has a lot more to do with his own implosion at teams sometimes, he doesn't want to be beset by incompetence, which is what Cyril Abiteboul was. And that's why Cyril, hopefully, will never come back to Formula One, because the guy's never accomplished anything. He must be very, very intelligent, of course, and has done well in certain things to get to Formula One. But in terms of what he's done in Formula One, Cyril is, he hasn't really done anything. And that's why he was, let go. Not because I think the Renault establishment wanted to get rid of him. It's because Fernando Alonso and Cyril Abiteboul would have exploded. That relationship would have not lasted, because Alonso can see incompetence coming from a mile away. Let me just quickly read the chat, because I want to see what you guys have to think again about that just stupid comment. Stupid. I mean, it's like, imagine if Ross Brawn in 2004 came out and said, Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello are totally equal. How dumb a comment that is. It's so stupid. So stupid. When we know that's not the case. You don't need to lie to us. Just, maybe not come out and just say, yeah, Alonso's the number one. He's basically God in this team. But, don't just lie and say, well, Ocon, he has the same chance as Alonso as being the number one, when we know that's not the case at all. I'd rather them neither confirm or deny that Alonso is number one than just outright lie that they're equal. Right, let's find some comments here from you guys about this. Ocon is not even as good as Hulkenberg. No offense to Ocon. You know what? I'll disagree with that. I think Ocon is better than Hulkenberg, but I think Ocon honestly is a younger, say, what? How much younger is Ocon compared to Hulkenberg? Is it 5 or 6 years, or maybe 7 or 8 years? But I think Ocon is a current generation version of Nico Hulkenberg. I know Ocon has had podium in Formula One now, which obviously Hulkenberg never had, but if you look at the way they perform, the way they drive, the way they've just been in Formula One, they are very similar drivers. Very similar drivers. And again, you know, Ocon, he's a very good driver, no doubt about it. As a racing driver, he is a great driver. For the Formula One level, I wouldn't say he's great. He's good. Same with Hulkenberg. At the Formula One level, Hulkenberg is a good driver. I'd say at the racing driver level, Hulkenberg is a great driver. I think if you're able to get into Formula One and, you know, be in Formula One for a few years, you've got to be a great racing driver. I don't think that makes you a great Formula One driver, just for being in Formula One for a few years. But if you look at the racing driver hierarchy, I think if you get to Formula One and stay there for a few years, you can't not be a great driver because Formula One is still the pinnacle of motorsport. Right, let me see if there's other comments from you guys. Seki says transitional year for Alpine. That's the thing. If it is a transitional year, then why go for Alonso? Because Alonso's not going to be around for that long. I mean, I don't see Fernando being around in 2025, for example, when they go to a lot more electrified power units. I don't see Fernando around for that at all. So, you know, if they're going to be in a transitional year, then why not just go for, say, two young drivers? Say Ocon and, is it Zhao from F2, who they have on their books? You know, why not go for a driver lineup like that if you're going to be in a transitional year? You can't really go through a transitional period with superstar great drivers in your team. Doesn't tend to work. I mean, if you look at McLaren, when they had Alonso, I mean, they were clearly going through a transition. But I think having Alonso in their team did not help because Alonso wants to win now. He doesn't want to win in 3 years' time or have the possibility of winning in 3 years' time. Ed Cantwell, great to see you in the chat. Says Renault's best finish was second last year with Ocon, not Ricciardo. It was indeed. But you know, last year Ocon was definitely nowhere near Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, he got kind of close in the end, but Ricciardo mostly pounded him into the dirt. And let me just find this final one that I just missed. From Laurie, says Ocon is less inconsistent than Hulkenberg, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference between the two is Ocon. I think when Ocon gets in form, he does tend to be consistent for a period of, say, 6 to 10 races, probably. No more than that. Hulkenberg is a bit more like, you know, 2 or 3 good races and then he'll just kind of drop off and then he'll come back and then drop off again. I will say one thing though about Hulkenberg. I wish people would stop talking about him in terms of, you know, linking him to a seat in Formula One. I honestly think Nico Hulkenberg's done in Formula One. Not because he's not good enough. I think he is good enough for Formula One, without a doubt. But if you look at how old he is and, you know, the situation of his career where he has had plenty of chances to have that standout race that gets him into a Ferrari or a Mercedes or a Red Bull or whatever. The fact he's had so many chances and failed, and now he's, you know, he's definitely past his prime. It's, you know, it's time to move on from Nico Hulkenberg. I still do think Nico is one of the most overrated drivers in history. The reason I say that is because considering what he's done in Formula One, and he still has been linked with Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull, I don't get it. I don't get it. How can a driver who has ultimately disappointed and, considering his talent level, has failed in Formula One, I won't say failed overall considering his results, but again, failed considering his talent and the opportunities he's had. I don't understand why he still gets linked with these teams. I don't get it. I really don't get it. The guy is just a good midfield driver. That's it. I think I've said this before, but he is the 2010s version of Mika Salo. He's a good midfield driver He'll get you some good finishes, some good points. He'll be a good driver to have if you're a midfield team. But if you're going to be fighting at the front or fighting for podiums, he's not good enough for your team. He's just not at that level. And I know, of course, Mika Salo drove for Ferrari, but of course that was as a replacement for Michael Schumacher when he was injured, not because they actually wanted him. But yeah. Let's move on to Haas F1 though, because they have had yet more controversy in the last week or so. So this is their new car. For me, this car looks horrible. Not because of the whole Russian flag thing. I don't really care about flags. I don't really care. It's not about that. It's really just it just looks boring. It's another boring looking car. I don't know what you guys think, but to me, it's just a boring looking F1 car. It looks like a car that is destined to be on the back row of the grid in 2021. I hope it's not, because I want Mick Schumacher to have a decent first season, but I really think this team are going to struggle in 2021. But yeah, the controversies. Let's get into that. So first off, we'll get into, I think, Nikita Mazepin, because that's something we can just quickly go over. So, of course, the whole controversy of him inappropriately touching a woman. We've all talked about that. I talked about it last week. If you want to check that out, links in the description below the Unstoppable Mercedes Empire video. Again, we talked about that, but there's been some new things that have come out. So, he apologized, for what he did, but then there was this whole controversy of he didn't clarify whether he apologized to the woman or not. Which, to be honest, I mean, he should, if he hasn't apologized and she is still hurt by it, and was at the time, of course, then he obviously should apologize. But again, I think this is another thing that's being just overblown. I mean, when it comes to anything off track, when it's like this, in this current day and age, it does tend to get overblown because of the way social media works, where it's guilty before innocent, even though we know Mazepin is guilty of what he did. The reaction on social media tends to be very overblown to anything, even if it's something that is obviously bad. But yeah, he had, that to deal with, and he didn't confirm or deny whether he apologized. He, had that. But then the other controversy is the livery. So the livery is, of course, it's inspired with, the colors by the Russian flag, because Nikita Mazepin, of course, is Russian. His dad is now a big, I guess, donor of the team. And the reason this is a controversial subject is because, in case you guys didn't know, is it WADA? I don't know what exactly it stands for. I think, is it World Athletic Drug Authority or something like that? What they've done in the past couple of years, in case you haven't seen, there was this big scandal at, I think, the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, where a lot of Russian athletes, or maybe all of them, I can't remember exactly, were caught doping. And then eventually, once the investigation concluded, they've come down very hard on them. I think they've been banned. I think the Russian national team have been banned from the next World Cup. I think they were competing in the Euros this summer, though, because I think the decision came after they qualified. But I think they're banned for the next World Cup. They've got several restrictions on them, to prevent them having any sort of power. Also, I think, is it Russian athletes or anyone in, anything Russian involved in sport, they're not allowed to display the colors of the flag for a couple years on their equipment, which this kind of is, because again, it's Nikita Mazepin's Russian. His dad is a big donor of the team, and they've got the Russian colors, so I guess they're breaking the rules. But the thing is, the reason they haven't been told to get rid of this livery is because if you look at the FIA rules, it is not actually a rule that you can't have the Russian flag on on the livery of an F1 car. Because when WADA made that decision, I don't think the FIA adapted that rule into their rule book. Maybe they will now. I know WADA now are looking at the Haas F1 car as a possible, breaking of those restrictions. It's an interesting subject. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with this, but if it's not an FIA rule, unless the FIA cave in to WADA, I don't really see this livery being altered. But it is interesting that now WADA are looking at this, and if they do try and have some influence over the FIA, I could see it getting messy. I really could. But yeah, another week of just controversy for this team. The last 3 or 4 months has just been really bad. Really since the Romain Grosjean crash. A week after that, I think it was, or 2 weeks after that, you had the Mazepin video, then you had the reaction to that, and then you have, him, making more comments about whether he didn't or didn't apologize. Then you have this, the Russian flag thing. I mean, it just doesn't end with this team. It does not end. And yeah, for this season, I don't see this team really doing anything. I hope they are better than I'm thinking they're going to be, but I think this team is going to really struggle. Not just because of the car, but also because they've got 2 literally inexperienced drivers in their team who are going to be learning very quickly on the job. Let me take a look at the comments, though, to see what you guys have to say about this certain subject. Blue Flag Alpha says he should never be forgiven. If you're talking about Nikita Mazepin, I disagree with that, because I think you can't go on your whole life not forgiving, people. I mean, what he did, was it bad? Yes. But it wasn't anywhere near as bad as a lot of other things in life, which people have been forgiven for. I mean, look at Logan Paul, for example, of course, a YouTuber, and that whole suicide forest thing. That was worse, I thought, than what Nikita Mazepin did. And look at his status now. He's been basically forgiven by everyone. So I think you can't just go on, I'll never forgive the guy. He made a big fucking mistake, did Mazepin. Really big mistake. And I'm sure now he's learned, or is learning still from it. And I think, eventually you just got to, let it go. F1 makes mistakes. He made a big one, but, F1 makes mistakes. If we didn't make mistakes in life, then how would we ever learn? Right, let me find some more comments here if I can. Becky says, Haas only need Rich Energy sponsoring to come full circle now. Oh dear. I will say, I really wish Rich Energy and the infamous William Story would actually set up an F1 team, because I think that team would be absolutely hilarious. Could you just imagine some of the quotes you'd get from the guy as to the performance of the team, and what decisions he would make when it came to drivers, and it would be non-stop comedy. And I know for a fact I would not stop making videos on what that F1 team would be, because you'd always have content there to talk about. William Story, if you are listening, please set up an F1 team, please, because if Ferrari, become good again like they should, we're going to be lacking comedic timing, comedic relief that I think you could definitely fill. So please, William, if you are listening, help out the F1 community from a comedic standpoint. Duke Richardson says, have more female F1 fans now. Gixxer, man, an American car with Russian flags on it. Lol, times have changed. They have. They have. Ewok says Mazepin should be able to be forgiven. Young guy, Russian, drives in F1 and has money. Give him a break. That's another thing. If you give a young person tons of money, I mean, they're going to fuck up. I think, hasn't this been proven time and time again in different sports and different lifestyles? I mean, look at certain musicians who become super rich, you know, young, and they end up doing just dumb shit. It happens everywhere. And again, there's people out there who have done a lot worse than Mazepin and who have not been, you know, there's been a better reaction to them. Right, it's like a couple more comments, and then I reckon we'll get onto the final team here. Team Penger says Logan Paul has been forgiven. I hear a lot of people, including myself, still against him. I mean, yeah, there are still people against him, but the majority of people, and I don't agree with, you know, what he did and all that, and I still thought what he did was absolutely terrible. But what I'm saying is the majority of people out there have forgiven him, because if they hadn't forgiven him, the people would still be going on about it to this day. The only people going on about it are people who just, you know, won't let it go. Which, if you won't let it go, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. And, you know, if you know, when that happened, I thought it was really bad and I couldn't see him ever recovering from it, and I didn't think I'd ever really forgive him. But again, young people do dumb shit. How many times can I explain this? I'm young, I do dumb shit as well. Every young person has done something dumb in their lives. Some young people do dumb things, it doesn't really have any consequences. Some people do dumb things and they're big consequences. But moral of the story, young people do dumb stuff. All the time. All the time. Fat Dave says, it's not that big of a deal. He touched somebody. I'm not sure I'll agree with that. I do think it was overblown. Well, not the controversy, the reaction to what he did. It was definitely overblown. It wasn't good at all what he did, but I think the reaction was massively overblown. They acted like he had literally, you know, I'm not going to say the words because I'll probably get demonetized, but he did, you know, serious harm to her. He just, you know, made a drunk mistake, that's all. Anyway, let's go on to the final team, and that is Williams. And look at this absolute shit house of a car. This Williams car, I've got to say, looks terrible. It really does. We'll get to a couple of different pictures here. You can see this is the front-facing view. I know this is a computer render of this car, but to me, it just looks terrible. The color scheme, the contrast between the white and the blue, it just looks awful. I honestly do hate it. I'm not sure yet in my mind if it's worse than the Haas livery, because I haven't really given it enough thought as to whether it's the worst livery. But again, it is so bad. It's definitely the worst Williams livery I've ever seen. It's so bad. Again, the contrast between the blue and the white is just way too... It just doesn't fit well. It really does not fit well. So yeah, it just looks like an awful car. But, you know, even if Williams made the best looking car on the grid, they're going to be last, most likely. So it doesn't really matter, you know, what livery they come up with, I guess. But it's a really shit livery, I've got to say. Anyway, let me go back to Mercedes. I'm going to read a final few comments from you guys about, you know, what we've talked about today. And then I'm going to announce some things coming up on the channel during next week. And there is actually plenty coming up on the channel next week. Ewok says it does look awful. Again, it does. It really does. Let me find some comments here that I didn't read before I went on to Williams. Eugene Kelly. You know, that's a great point. Let me go back to Williams a minute. Eugene Kelly makes a great point. It looks like a created F1 team on a video game. It does. It looks like the standard, well, not a standard livery, but it does look like something you would see on an F1 game. Yeah, it's terrible. Let me see if there's any more comments here that I haven't read out. Infinite says, well, Haas said they expect to struggle. They barely spent any tokens, so they are going to go full pelt in 2022. Thing is, if they go full pelt in 2022, I don't really see them being, that much better. I'm probably going to make a video on this at some point during this year, but I just think the Haas F1 team, I don't really know where they're going. If you look at all the teams, even Williams, I know where they're going. They're probably going to be going out of, out of business. I still think, because I just don't see why that team is going to, carry on as it is. I just don't see it. I mean, I know they've been took over in that, but I don't see that team really carrying on. Best case scenario for Williams is that they'll get took over by someone who will then rename the team something else. But at least for Williams, I see what what I think is going to happen in the future. For Haas F1, I just don't see where they're going. I don't look ahead and think, yeah, they could probably, get 6th or 7th in the constructors and, in 2 or 3 years' time and probably be around that level. I just don't see it. I don't see where they're going. And I think, with them having this relationship they have with Ferrari, they can't keep on with that relationship because, I mean, look how it, look at the hand they were dealt in 2020. They were bad because Ferrari were bad. And, with the new regulations coming in 2022, which is going to promote uniqueness and individuality in terms of building your own car and all of that, with Haas and that relationship they have and just the way they've been going in the last couple of years, I don't see where they're going. I don't see what the plan is. Where do Haas F1 want to be? Do they want to be where they are? Do they want to be where they were in 2018, which was 5th in the constructors? Again, where do they want to be? Do they want to be a team like an AlphaTauri, which I think would be a good aim for Haas F1? Or again, do they want to be someone who's fighting, in the top 5 in the constructors? What do they want? I don't know. And I do think Haas F1 are probably going to be the first team to leave the grid. I know I've said, of course, with Williams, I think they'll still go out of business. But I think with Williams, there's a much, much, much better chance that they'll get, again, renamed as something and they'll still go on from the same base. With Haas F1, honestly, I just see them floating around where they are, which is nowhere, and then just leaving the sport in 3 or 4 years when they've, just blasted loads of money on not really accomplished anything. I'd love to know from Gene Haas what the plan is, like where he sees this team being and where he wants them to be. Because I've never really heard that from him. Or at least I've not seen it in the news. Maybe he said it, but I've just not seen it. But I'd love to know where he thinks this team should be and where he wants them to be. Sorry about my throat, but, the obvious things behind that. But, yeah, Haas F1 they're just drifting through Formula 1. They're not really a team on the move. Ewok asks, which livery do you like the most? It'd have to be the Aston Martin one. Let me get it back up. There you go. Yeah, it'd be the Aston Martin number 1. And then I'd say Alpine second. And then third. I don't know what I'd go for third. Maybe Mercedes or Alfa Romeo or McLaren. I don't know. It's probably between those three teams, but number 1 and number 2 so far are Aston Martin and Alpine. Their liveries do look really nice. It's just the whole shape of the car really does look beautiful, as you can see on screen now. Right, let's find one final comment, and then we'll get to me announcing content for next week. Ewok, I've made better liveries on Gran Turismo Sport. In reference to Williams there, of course. Right, let me find one final good one that I haven't read out yet. There's quite a few. I'm trying to find one that I can end on. You know what? I'll answer this from Ewok. Will Lance Stroll dominate Sebastian Vettel? No. I don't see that happening at all. I mean, he will have races where he'll beat him for sure, but I don't think he'll beat him. Never mind dominate him. I just don't see that at all. And just to answer for Team Pengers in the chat, who says, you're going to make a championship predictions video before the season starts? Yes. It won't be a video where it's called, necessarily our championship predictions, and it'll probably be like a podcast or something. But yeah, most likely we will be making that, and I'll be putting it out on the channel sometime between testing and the first Grand Prix. But anyway, that's it for the stream today, guys. Just want to get into, though, one final thing, and that is content coming up for next week. So, you may have remembered last week that I said there was going to be hopefully a video coming out this week, a recorded video. Now, the reason that video has not come out is literally because all I have to do is the thumbnail, but with the thumbnail of this video, I'm trying to really go for a bit of a design here. I'm not trying to just, whack on a picture with a bit of text on like I've done for this stream. I'm going for something a bit more interesting with my thumbnail. But the video itself is finished. What the video is, I might as well just say what it is. It's a review of 2024 Ferrari. That video is finished. It's done. Again, just need to do the thumbnail and the video will come out. I'm hoping it will come out on Tuesday. Again, I hope. As long as the thumbnail is designed and I'm happy with it, then that video will come out on Tuesday. If it don't come out on Tuesday, though, it most likely will come out before pre-season testing gets underway. And then also, there will be a podcast coming out by Thursday evening, which is me and Nib giving, again, our early 2021 predictions before we've seen any of testing, any of the data from the cars. Just our gut feeling of who's going to finish where in the championship. So yeah, that'll be coming out Wednesday or Thursday. I'd say most likely Thursday, because I do work as well, a job, so that does affect things. But it'll most likely come out before testing starts, and it really should, because after testing starts, it won't really be relevant. And then, guys, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next week, I will be doing 3 watch-alongs for pre-season testing, because pre-season testing, thankfully, is live on Sky Sports F1. So I will be doing a watch-along on those 3 days. And really, they're going to be the same as the watch-alongs for testing that I did in 2020. The only real difference is maybe a couple elements of the format will be different, which you'll see when we get to it. Also, I'm not going to be doing 4-hour streams for the entire afternoon session. It's probably going to be 2 to 2.5 hours at most, because 4 hours is just way too long, and it destroys my throat. And yeah, I end up getting way too tired. So 2 to 2.5 hours, say the last 2 hours of testing each day, that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, hopefully next week there'll be 5 videos, 3 streams, 1 podcast, and a recorded video. And then the week after that, there should be something the week after that. I don't know exactly what it is going to be yet, but I'll let you guys know when we get to this time next week, I guess. But yeah, that's the plan for next week. Hopefully you guys will be along for all of those videos and streams. If you are new to the channel and you want to be around for that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or go to my channel page and do it there. Don't forget to hit the notifications bell if you want to be notified for those streams and videos as well. Smash a like button. Make sure to share this video absolutely everywhere you can. Comment down below what you thought of what I talked about today. You know, with all the liveries and the controversies and talking points and all of that. Let me know what you think in the comments section. What else? Yeah, check out the stream I did last Sunday. It's called The New F1 2021 Season is Closing In. You can check that out if you want to see what my thoughts were on the McLaren, Red Bull, AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo liveries that were revealed, a week and a half ago. And also, if you want to check out my video on the unstoppable Mercedes Empire that came out about a month ago, that is also in the description down below. Make sure to check that out. If you want to send me an email for any reason at chazzahdf1 at gmail.com. I think I got that right. Yeah, chazzahdf1 at gmail.com. Yeah. If you want to send me an email for any reason, you know, go ahead. If you want to contact me on Discord, go ahead. The link below to the Discord server is there. If you want to, you know, join, interact with people, there's quite a lot of people in our server. We have, almost 500 people in the Discord. And it's pretty lively, pretty active, and it will be during the season. I mean, it's pretty active and lively now. Then the season, it'll be mental. So, if you want to be a part of this, you know, growing community, then go ahead and join that. And if you want to contact me for any reason, then you can join that and then, you know, hit me with a DM for any reason. But yeah, I think that's it for all of the plugs. I think that is it for this stream. So yeah, until hopefully a couple recorded videos heading your way before Friday, and until my next stream next Friday at, say, 2 p.m. UK time, and then 2 p.m. on Saturday and 2 p.m. on Sunday again for the testing watch-alongs. Until then, guys, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.